Hello, and welcome to FrostBytes, where logistics and tech meet a fresh perspective. I'm your host for today and head of marketing at PackSafe, Ivan Castro. And today, I have the honor of speaking with our guest, Trupen Modi. Trupen is a digital transformation executive with nearly 3 decades of experience driving innovation at the intersection of healthcare and tech. Currently, he serves as a senior principal director of customer transformation in healthcare at Microsoft, and he's a recognized force behind some of the most impactful digital transformations in the industry. Trupen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Evan. How are you doing?
Excellent. It's a little cold here, unseasonably in the Northeast, but we're getting ready for the summer. So, Trupen, before we get into your background, we want to start with a shock to the system, what we like to call Trupen's hot take. From your vantage point at Microsoft, what's a belief you have about digital transformation or AI and how it is or isn't being used effectively in healthcare that you think might shake things up?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Evan. Fantastic question, right? So, see, when you look at the industry at large, the thing that actually transform and makes a company successful is when you're actually changing the behavior of your customer. Okay. And you can see classic examples of it, whether it be Uber, as a matter of fact, if you think about it, right? If you go back to a couple of years ago, you used to be on the phone calling yellow cab, waiting for them to show up at your door and all of those stuff, versus now they have actually changed the behavior where you even don't look it up. And just 10 minutes before your departure, you click the Uber button and the cab is over there. So you'll see multiple examples throughout the industry altogether. And that's where AI, GenAI is actually transforming your life, if you will. For example, for us within Microsoft altogether, we leverage Copilot every single day, every single hour. It has really improved our productivity, make our content richer, improve our business processes drastically altogether. So I think leveraging the AI, Gen AI, what actually is changing your behavior is going to help you transform yourself as well as your company altogether. So there are 3 tiers that we look at. The bottom tier is more about the individual productivity. Once you get to that, the second tier is more about the business processes, if you will. And the third tier is where you really transform the business with new innovative technologies altogether. Those are the 3 layers that we see that is going to transform the future, if you will. Thank you, Evan.
I love that example of Uber, and the ultimate version of that adoption is even seeing the city cabs now transforming into using apps as well. So I think that behavior really has driven from the bottom up, from, as you mentioned, the people using it all the way up to higher reasons why you want to get involved in using an app like that. One question I have as a follow-up is like, what's one reason why you find some enterprises or people in enterprise might not start adopting it or might not jump in as strongly as you're seeing folks at Microsoft use Copilot?
So, I mean, every major technology goes through a period of adoption. As part of adoption, there always comes a little bit of apprehension, security concerns, right? While at the same time being excited about the opportunity altogether. There's nothing new when we went from mainframe to PC altogether, when we went from on-prem to cloud, for example, right? So we're in that particular phase. But surprisingly enough, if you see, more than 90% of the companies are using AI in one form or the other altogether. Some of them unknowingly altogether, right? And if you look at the Microsoft journey itself, obviously, meaning the tools are first released in Microsoft as we are customer zero, if you will, right? And we live and breathe our own technology. So it's easier for us to adapt. And then before the technology is released in our company, we have the necessary guards in place already, the security perspective, governance perspective, versus for the customers, they have to build them up altogether, right? So I think we're just going through the transition phase, right? But what we are seeing is a massive adoption of Copilot and AI technology across our customers, right? There are many, many customers that I can name who have adopted Copilot as an enterprise solution for them. Many of them, especially in the pharma and life science altogether. Now, so when we look at the journey again, like most of them are in the bottom tier where they're leveraging AI, Gen AI, starting with Copilot to really, really improve employees' productivity and experience, right? And some of them are venturing into the business processes, but that's the phase that we are in, if you will. And it's going to start from big enterprise organizations to middle tier to a smaller tier. And then we are also working very actively to empower our partners with AI, Gen AI capabilities from our platform altogether. So we are in the transition phase. What we see today, in 2 years from now, it's going to look a completely different picture altogether, because the pace of AI, the speed of AI is really breathtaking, Ivan. Like from the older days, from on-prem to cloud to 10 years probably, right? The journey in AI, Gen AI is going to be much, much smaller than that, Ivan.
Yeah, Trupen, it's exciting to see the pace of the adoption so much quickly exceed even what the internet and cloud did. I'm excited to see where it continues. Let's switch gears now and talk about
Sure.
your journey and what we like to call Trupen's cold start. You've led digital transformations for healthcare companies at one of the largest tech companies in the world. What drew you into healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, so in Microsoft, I've been roughly 10 years. Most of that is in health and life science. And when I say health and life science, I cover a ton of providers, academic medical centers, payer organizations, global clients, US based clients, right? But lately, I'm focused on pharma and life science for the last 2 years. And prior to that, I was at EY, and prior to that, I was Deloitte. And originally in my career, I was at TCS, right? So I've done various things in my life altogether. But the true passion for me, what I've discovered is healthcare, because that actually changes people's lives, if you will, whether it be on the provider side or whether it be in the pharma and life science side. I see a ton of innovation that's happening in pharma and life science, whether it be for drug discovery, especially as when we see transition from small molecule to large molecule. When we look at the manufacturing and supply chain, we're going to talk a lot about it, right? Saying that we have a massive pipeline of drugs. How can the organizations transform their manufacturing to keep up the capacity needs? And then finally, how can we get the drugs in the hands of the patient that needs desperately altogether? So those are the massive transformation that's happening in pharma and life science, and really, really excited about how it can improve patients' life. That's the reason I'm focused on healthcare.
Trupen, how has joining Microsoft changed your perspective on all those challenges in healthcare?
Um, I would say multiple things, right? Firstly, joining Microsoft itself has changed my perspective in terms of the power of a technology company altogether. Okay. Because this is the organization that where I've seen that we don't have a closed mindset. This was the organization that I've walked through the doors of the hospitals altogether, shadowing doctors, surgeons. I've gone through the vaccination plants across many pharma and life science organizations. I've seen the real hand, the power of technology altogether. And what Microsoft has provided is that opportunity to really get deep into pharma and life science and directly impact the businesses and finally the patients altogether. That's something special that Microsoft has given me, and I'm sure there is other exciting things coming down the line altogether. But I love being in Microsoft and what I've learned and achieved in Microsoft.
Sounds like a fantastic journey. And in that journey, you've probably seen some fires, Trupen. And we want to pivot here to our next series of questions, what we like to call our hot challenges. When you
Sure.
think about those transformations that you've delivered at these different healthcare organizations at scale, what have you found to be the biggest challenge when it comes to enterprises trying to make digital transformation happen?
The biggest, so the one of the biggest challenge is internal cultural change, basically. Okay, so any kind of transformation really brings in a change that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, if you will. So there are resistance culturally within organizations to adopt technologies and to change themselves to deliver the transformation you need. So that's number one. The second one is around the digital ecosystem. As you know, in any organization, they have plotitude of many, many systems altogether, which has organically grown altogether. There is a lack of connectivity between data and the systems throughout the organizations altogether, which results in redundancy, higher cost, inefficiencies. Then you really can't take advantage of the data that you already have, right? And then finally, I would say is around the operational expenses. What I see that many of the organizations spend a lot of money on operational inefficiencies, if you will, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be supply chain, or even R&D, as a matter of fact, altogether, right? Those are the three primary challenges that I see. And on top of that, sometimes the organization are so stuck into lights on that they really don't see the opportunity for transformation the way they should be seeing it, right? They're focused on incremental changes versus really making those changes that's going to leapfrog the organization to the next generation. So those are some of the top challenges that I see across the enterprise space.
That's really insightful. My follow-up question was to dig more to understand how you would suggest a healthcare executive would change their mindset. I think your last point was very poignant around looking at the bigger picture beyond simply making incremental improvements to leapfrogging. Do you have any other recommendations on how supply chain leaders should think differently about their tech stack when diving into a digital transformation?
So question is multifaceted, right? Ivan, so I'll answer it in that perspective, right? So let's take an example of Uber as a matter of fact, right? Like if you would have asked before the Uber was founded, like what should we do in New York City, right?
Mhm.
And the answer would have been that we need more yellow cabs. The same question was with Henry Ford. If you go back to one of his quotes, that if I asked everybody, they would have said we need faster horses, if you will have, right? So what happens is that when you're looking at incremental opportunities, right, you miss the overall growth opportunity that your organization has, and you're stuck into lights on incremental changes and all of those stuff. Basically. So the ask to the executives is that look at more broadly in perspective in terms of the transformation that you can truly bring to the market that's going to change your customers' behavior. Going back to the first point that we have altogether, right, Ivan? So let's take an example of supply chain as a matter of fact, right? So if you think about the historical supply chain, right, it's more about how you're going to deliver supply chain to your end consumers. That's inside out thinking altogether, right? Versus they need to really think about is that, hey, have such large, let's say in certain situations, patients as a matter of fact, for pharma and life science, I want to make sure that I can deliver the drug to them in 24 hours, right? How can I do this stuff? How can I build my supply chain and manufacturing distribution centers to be able to do that altogether? So when you take that perspective, right, it's going to help you transform your entire business processes altogether. Right? Rather than looking at incrementally, how can I actually make my distribution center a little better? How can I make a fleet a little bit more efficient altogether? Sure, you should do all of those things. No debate about it. But that's not where you want to invest half your money altogether. That's really not going to change your market position, right? Really want to look at more from the perspective is that who the end consumer is, what do you want to deliver them, how do you want to deliver them, why do you want to deliver them, stuff, and then you work your way back down, removing a lot of redundancies, removing unnecessary investments, and transforming investments that actually going to change your market position. That's what I would recommend.
Trupen, I think that's solid advice, and I can see how having that mindset will help teams even rationalize and whittle down the technologies they actually need to make those behavior outcomes they're seeking come to fruition without breaking the bank and chasing technologies they may not need. That's really helpful, Trupen. I'm going to switch gears now here to what we call our lightning round. I want to ask a series of technologies, and I want to hear from you. Are you bullish, neutral, or pessimistic on each of these technologies, and why? Are you ready?
Okay.
Here we go. Real-time IoT devices and visibility.
Brilliant. Okay, it's going to really transform in our discussions over here, manufacturing, supply chain, if you will, really going to transform that. And doesn't matter which industry, whether it's pharma, life science, whether it's food and beverages, right? It's going to really transform how we manage and operate supply chain and manufacturing.
Here's a second one that's a tough one. Sustainability. Do you think this is a check mark that people try to comply with, or is it something that the industry truly cares about?
There's a business case to be made for sustainability, right? Meaning a lot of organizations definitely take sustainability very serious because of many rules and regulations requirement, right? It's also branding requirement, if you will, right? But the organizations are observing that really focusing on sustainable solutions is actually resulting into a lot more efficiencies and cost savings as part of that discovery for sustainability is concerned. So there is a business case to be made there, Ivan, and not just a checkbox. Now, is it going to result into the revenue generation of by the investments that make? That depends on the industry, if you will, Ivan. But I see that as a necessary investment that needs to be made.
One more here for you, Trupen. Gen AI. Is it ready for prime time, or is it a fad?
It's evolving rapidly, Ivan. Okay. And it's there at the footstep. It is being used by many organizations very rapidly, especially even the agents, as a matter of fact. When you talk about Gen AI, I've been in discussion with many of the leadership across the industry, if you will, and they're actively working on building agents. Some of them already build the agents and deliver to the market, right? So in my point of view, it is real, evolving very rapidly, if you will, and you really don't want to miss the opportunity on getting on the board for Gen AI.
Awesome. We're going to pivot here now to hearing a little bit more about future predictions you have. Our listeners love to hear what's next. So can you tell us what are the technologies you think are going to have the biggest impact in cold chain and in healthcare in the next 2 to 3 years?
Um, Healthcare is a broad spectrum, right? So let's say when we talk from the provider perspective, I'm going to give you, and then I'll get to the coaching also. When you talk from the provider perspective, historically, almost the entire healthcare system have been operating through the EMR systems, right, which is a necessary stuff altogether. But they have historically been not been really transformation in terms of opening themselves to access their data and provide more insights. With the new technology around Gen AI, especially on agents, you will see a transformation in healthcare altogether, whereby you can make a better utilization of the data and provide insights, whether it be recognizing patients early on for a rare disease, as a matter of fact, or whether it be for care coordination, if you will. You will see AI, especially agent-based technology, playing much bigger role, if you will, right? And when you look at pharma and life science, and we already covered pharma and life science greatly in the previous call altogether, you're going to see a massive, massive transformation in R&D space. You can already see there's a ton of applications out there that uses AI, Gen AI, to accelerate the drug discovery, if you will. Okay, even tools like Gen AI can help you in terms of automation of submission of documentations to FDA, like the IND applications, like protocol designs, all of those stuff is impacting, if you will, the R&D space, right? Manufacturing, again, same thing. If you look at some of the plants are very legacy plants, the world is moving toward digital and connected plants altogether. At the core of it is Microsoft Adaptive Cloud, which is IoT operations and stuff, if you will, right? Now, in supply chain, as we spoke about it, right? The classic problem in supply chain is end-to-end visibility, right? The twist that I'm bringing is that the end-to-end visibility should be thought from the customer perspective, not necessarily in terms of how you want to deliver the stuff, right? So when you look at this cold storage, right, there are three primary challenges with the cold storage, if you will, right? So one of the stuff is basically temperature maintenance, Ivan, right? So whether it be for biologics, whether it be for vaccines, whether it be for food altogether, there are stringent requirements in terms of temperature maintenance. And reality is that it changes hand. Yeah, sure, your fleet might be in good shape. Sure, the storage might be in good state. As they change hands, that's when the breakup happens altogether. So I do see IoT playing a major role over there in terms of making sure that you are able to maintain the temperature appropriately, right? One of the innovations that I hope it accelerates is around the modernization of the infrastructure altogether for cold storage. Right, there's a ton of investments happening there. Don't get me wrong, right? But it's more been piecemeal by piecemeal altogether. Whether it be, sorry, right? So whether it be warehouses, whether it be pre-built refrigerators, all of them, I think there is a massive need for quick modernization. Ivan, and I understand it's a very invested area, but I think combination of IT operations and having the new infrastructure is going to make a big difference in the cold storage altogether. And the other issue is that when we look at the cold storage, the infrastructure need, the real estate need, all of those stuff is pretty heavy duty altogether. So one of the new trends going on around the world is around creating those cold pods, if you will, which is on
Yeah.
demand altogether. So I want to really see how they operate when it's out there. I haven't seen it completely being enterprise across the globe altogether, but I do want to see the next iteration of how the cold storage happens at the consumer level, the mid-size level, and enterprise level. I think those are the challenges see the next iteration of how the cold storage happens at the consumer level, the mid-size level, and enterprise level. I think those are the challenges